Welcome back to the Whirling Fortress. Let's go ahead and talk about today's topic, which is what is Bowser's Castle and why are we trying to exit it? So, in 2013, Mark Fisher wrote a piece called Exiting the Vampire's Castle. This piece was equal parts revolutionary and controversial. In the essay, he brought forth a critique of movement politics for the online left for a plethora of reasons, some right and, some wrong. But most importantly, he wrote, we need to learn or relearn how to build comradeship and solidarity instead of doing capital's work for it by condemning and abusing each other. This doesn't mean, of course, that we must always agree. On the contrary, we must create conditions where disagreement can take place without fear of exclusion and excommunication. So, why bring up Mark Fisher for a show that's on Smash community issues? To me, it's because the Smash community has functionally created its own castle where rather than trying to empower one another, we use our social capital and power within the community to destroy each other. So why specifically Bowser's Castle? Not only is Bowser the primary villain in Nintendo's flagship franchise, but Bowser just so happens to be the name of the new president of Nintendo of America. So there's quite a bit of symbolism there. In essence, Nintendo created the foundations of the castle by not being directly involved with the scene, creating a power vacuum that was filled by the grassroots efforts that we came to know as the greater Smash community. To be honest, that's been, both a blessing and a curse. That curse comes in really two phenomena in the community. First, any attempts to escape outside of the castle, outside of the confines by which Nintendo really allows us to operate, trying to go from grassroots to the mainstream, it always came with this unspoken risk that we might jeopardize Nintendo writing in and saving the community. This was particularly ironic because Nintendo coming in would have really stripped the community of that grassroots power and really ended the scene as we know it. But that's also, on the other side of it, not all castles are bad per se. It's just to say that the one that, Nintendo would have built would be vastly different than what we know of as the Smash community today. But more importantly and more interesting to me, the power figures that we created in Nintendo's stead, left unchecked, do what all powerful figures tend to do, abuse their power. And in doing so, we use what little social capital we have to destroy each other rather than build each other up. We've built these castle walls with the intention of protecting, what individual little power we have, but ultimately having those same walls keeping us trapped within them. In this way, we could have chosen to build anything. We could have picked the top tier or any other hero or any other character, but instead we chose to be Bowser. In order to truly thrive as a scene, we must grow beyond waiting for Nintendo. But more importantly, we must create a community that we build each other up in the spirit of solidarity and collaboration, rather than tearing each other down by serving only our own separate, atomized individual interests. We must stop waiting for an outside force to save us, and we must stop efforts that block the community from saving itself. If that seems like, too abstract for you, let's talk about like a TLDR version of what Bowser's Castle is. The castle is all the things all the things that we really dislike about the community. The castle is disempowering ourselves by avoiding the Smash politics and drama that people try to avoid because they want the community to be an escape from the drama of real life. The castle is the unwillingness to work together on projects because we see opportunities as zero sum. The castle is the willingness to alienate or abuse a sector of the community because it gets likes on Twitters or laughs at our next local. The castle is the inability to discuss issues with nuance and intelligence, instead favoring essentialization and moralization. The castle is the walls that we built together that we must dismantle together if we ever want to be the community that we know that it can be. So it's my contention and hope for the show that if we unapologetically examine the issues that hold the community back, dive into the drama and politics just a little bit, we can foster healthy discussion that will be the first steps towards doing the work that gets us to exit Bowser's Castle. Did you guys have anything you wanted to add to that or talk about for that?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much like you said, I think to put it more in layman's terms, because you have like, as far as I know, a pretty political background, that kind of
Yeah.
maybe makes your language a little bit harder to grasp for the average person who is not really so much interested in any kind of politics, but just is interested in playing the game of Smash. And inevitably, in doing so, they find themselves, vacuumed into this toxic vortex, which is Twitter, because that's the way that the community is all lumped together. And you don't need to know anything about politics of any kind to understand that Smash Twitter, even in normal times before this year and everything that's happened, is a pretty toxic place. It's not a universally toxic place, but it's a place where toxicity is very, very naturally occurring. And a lot of that has to do with a lot of the factors that Lux just went over, such as, lack of leadership and connection between people, and also somewhat of a lack of communication, I think, even though we are obviously, Twitter is a communicative platform, but at the same time, it's a platform where we're limited to text, which, if you're ever trying to date, that just texting can create a lot of not the easiest ways to communicate exactly, but in any medium, texting is limited in terms of expression, and Twitter is even more limiting because you're limited to, what is it, 240 at this point? It's a character limit. You can't even say everything that you want to.
Not enough characters.
Not enough characters.
The amount of characters that'll be in the next Smash game.
Yes,
is pretty much
beat me to it. So I could go on, but as far as just introductory wise, that's pretty much how I feel about the general concept. We want to talk about ways that we can make our community, just why even make it more complicated than it needs to be, better. Make us just less toxic, more understanding of each other, because at the end of the day, we are a community. And like you said, because I don't look at Nintendo as being much of a detriment, but kind of like you implied, is they're a limit. They limit what we can do as a community. But I think no matter what, we're grassroots still, even though there's like a lot of esports agencies and everything in there, because we still take ourselves as a community. We get those connections by making the game popular, by having more people play it. And as far as a competitive scene, I feel like we still are grassroots, so we can still solve a lot of these problems ourselves.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I would add to that too, same, very similar sentiment where, ultimately, like, what it is about, like, what can we do about ourselves? And just to even pull this back in terms of life, right? You have the external and the internal. A lot of times that we operate in a way that we look at, okay, what is this? Like, I'm going to blame this thing or that thing outside of me, right? And ultimately, regardless of that being a factor, there's going to be all these other variables out there. Some variables we see, some of them we're never going to know they even exist. But the one thing that we do know, the one constant in these things, is it's going to be us transversing through this world, through these variables, trying to find a home, trying to find a solution. And so I think what we're looking at ultimately is people looking at themselves. What can we all do better to move forward? You said exit that castle, some of it of external, made by external variables, some of it made by our own, right? And recognizing that, accepting that, and moving forward. And I think that's the biggest thing for us. This community has a lot of things to be proud of. There's a lot of things that we've done great and we've done well and we can succeed. And there's a reason why most people talk about Smash in such a like positive manner in terms of like the passion and the love and the care there and the ingenuity, right? But we have to come together if we're looking to move forward. If we don't do that, we're gonna be stagnant, or just even go even worse, right? And I think that it's a time for all of us to really sit back and look at what has happened through the course of these years. We've seen a lot of growth, and sometimes you see the growth, you see the bright lights of esports. Everyone has seen it, and we just think, oh, it's just going around the corner, it's just around the corner. Well, it's been around the corner for Smash for a very long time, and now we have to look at why aren't we there yet? What are the things we can control? What are the things we can't control? And then the things we can control, how can we do that optimally? And how can we do that with sincerity and kindness and in a way that we are consistently building up ourselves so that we can live and everyone can be in a good place. Rising tides versus zero sum, as you talked about before.
Excellent, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I think our goal is to make the community as welcoming and warm and inviting, and as you're speaking to the better nature of the community rather than the worst devils of the community that we kind of we sort of see that incentivized on Twitter to a large degree. That sometimes we are just absolutely terrible to each other. And that's like not just in the context of when I say terrible to each other, not just in the context of just making tweets that are funny or jokes, but it goes ranging from the hot takes being kind of really the best way to build up a brand, but also to the behind the scenes things that we've seen, some of the abuses, some of the bad things that are just really difficult conversations that need to be had for us to move forward, just so that we can create a community that's universally welcome instead of just something that's kind of very hierarchical that we've kind of created. The Smash community is it's a miracle in grassroots organizing if you really think about it. And what I'm hoping that we're able to do is bridge that gap, like you were saying, Bam, from where we're at to where we could be, and ultimately where we should be, given the amount of talent and creativity and brilliance that makes
And
up
the
the
IP
community.
power too, man. I mean, that's something also.
Yeah.
Like, I love to talk about how great we are as a community, but we also need to understand, like, we've got the greatest collection of IP in the world. All right, with a game that is fantastic, with a developer like, you can say what you want about Sakurai, but in terms of the game and what he has built as a series,
Yeah,
especially in
absolutely.
comparison to general other fighting games, incredible, right? Like, as a series.
Right.
So you really have to look at what we have to play with, right? What the tools at our disposal are pretty damn good. It's not like we're sitting here. Some of these guys can fight all day long with whatever titles they have, and it's just not going to have the power. I can say, hey, my game, you can fight as Mario, and that has huge implications in comparison to Joe Blow, World Warrior 5000. That
Exactly.
means nothing, right? And so I think it's something that we also need to talk about there, so people also understand the worth. If we do succeed, if we do get in a place where we can be, why this is possible. Why Smash can have that staying power, that retention, and really make this happen if we do things correctly.
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of
Agreed.
building on that. It's Smash is maybe the only competitive game, or like the only like esport, so to speak, where somebody who has no idea anything about esports, for one, or even two, video games, can recognize a good majority of, well, maybe not majority at this point, but a lot of the characters. That, like, you don't have to play any video games.
Yeah.
You know who Mario is, you know who Pikachu is, you know who Kirby is. You're going to see them, you're going to recognize it. And even on a more like mechanical level, I mean, I guess fighting games in general have this characteristic, but like, you look at Smash, you don't have to have ever played or even seen Smash before to kind of know what's going on. I've had Smash on a million times, and like, like one of my parents is in the room, and they don't know anything about the game, and they can kind of say, oh, he's winning, like he killed the other guy, he knocked the other guy off the screen. It's a very, very naturally, understandable game, and I think that's a great point that you bring up about the value that carries, because it just makes the game so accessible, which is also credit to Sakurai. He wanted the game to be accessible in every way. Maybe went a little bit too far towards the casual side of things, but that's for another discussion. But yeah.
I don't know about that. well, yeah, I want to bring that up in another.
Yeah.
But I actually even piggybacking on that.
Talk about that too. Yeah, go ahead.
but piggybacking off that, like in terms of honoring the legacy of Smash, I think one of the important things to even think about too is when Smash came out. Was it 1998, the original one? It was like the 4-player game, a 4-player fighting game. So like the social concept of how to expand those bounds of what we understood games to be and how we relate to each other, even like through the mechanics of the game, is something that Smash it's unique to its legacy in particular.
Yeah.
I think more so.
Absolutely.
So
It's so free.
we got to do our best to really honor that legacy.
Yeah, I mean, I know we'll probably through the course of our discussions touch on this, but this is also one of the reasons why I think the Smash community grew analogous to the traditional fighting game community, because even for the fighting game community, it's like, yes, you're one-on-one, but you're in an arcade. You have people coming back and forth, back and forth. Smash, on the other
Right.
hand, it's at your house, but you can have everyone jump in and play. At that time, everyone equaled 4 players, right? But like that was impactful, like you said, and because of that, you got the interactions going there, the communal interactions of You think you're good, but my Link's better. My
Mm.
Kirby's better, right? And everyone knows that. Everyone has those kind of stories, and that's kind of the value that was brought there. Because, if it's one on one and you kind of lose or whatever, it's like, okay, I'm not gonna play anymore and do whatever. But there's a preconceived notion of like chance or opportunity there, right? Where, and again, the collective, and because you're having that discussion and narrative, you're more invested in the game as a whole, and I think that's where Smash got its investment, because it wasn't an arcade. It was because of
Right.
the accessibility. It was almost like your own home arcade, right? To have people just come in and be able to play and do your thing. So I think
A
that goes
game
a
of friends,
very
if you
long
will.
way.
Yeah.
Yeah, a game of friends, man, absolutely, and that's very, very impactful. And I mean, even to a greater discussion, like as a community, that's kind of how we have to operate if we were going to be successful, right? In this, we have to understand that narrative, that that we all can grow together and make this happen.
Yeah, something that you just made me think of, Bam, with the mention of just that line of like, oh, I can beat this Link or my Link's better, whatever, whatever you said. It really goes to where, again, I think the social media aspect of it really is a big source of the problem because there's this disconnect. Like, if you're talking trash to even someone you don't know, but they're sitting right next to you, there's sort of this friendly element to it, right? It's like, like maybe you hate the guy in just
Hmm.
general, but like, you're kind of like, let's go, let's go. There's people getting hype. It's fun. When that happens on Twitter, you can't really feel that camaraderie or that like fellow, smasher thing. And it can be perceived very much sort of hatefully. And I think the best way to frame this in terms of something that probably everybody can relate to is one of the reasons why, at least me personally, I never play on like quick play, elite smash, all that kind of stuff. We've probably all been in this position where you've gone online, you get matched up against a random opponent. They're playing someone like Falcon or whatever. They're probably like 10 times worse than you. But, they get some random spike, it lags, so they get some kind of hype play, and then they start teabagging right there. Tell me you don't hate that person and wish, like, the worst things on them, because you don't know this person. They're just a random person, and you can create who they are. You can make them this most, disgusting, horrible person in your head. And you want to, because you don't want to, you want an outlet for that, anger you feel about them styling on you and then teabagging you and everything. But then if your friend does that, you love them and then you just laugh and you want to do it back to them, and that person could be just like your friend. They could be someone where they're not taking it so seriously. They're just the same as you. But that disconnection is just really prevents you from getting the right experience.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Brilliant.
I think that's one of the main things. I think in Smash, again, like you said, Twitter, we're really big on that. Um, there's another thing too that we need to identify when it comes to Smash, and I think that the traditional FGC has doesn't this very well, but also I don't think they have the problem that we have.
Hmm.
The problem that we have, it's a blessing and a curse, which is going to be a very big, like piece of the story when it comes to Smash, right? Like there's a lot of things
Recurring
that
motif, if you will.
yes, definitely the reoccurring motif, where we have such a large casual avenue, right? We
Hmm.
have a large casual community,
Yeah.
and these other fighting games, you don't have that. You don't have not to that level that we do. Usually, it's like the core
Mhm.
community, and that's it, right? And then some people will tune in every now and then, but a lot of times those people just come from other games, to be honest. But
Mhm.
for Smash, you have this casual community, right? And so you have sometimes where you have a bunch of people who are out there and they're making discussions and talking this and that and the third, all this craziness. And it's not so much that their opinions don't matter. Um, it is that you have to assess what is their goal, what are they looking towards versus a competitive community, right? And how
Mhm.
can we assist them or like have have their support, but at the same time make a distinction between what voices matter and that rally cry, because sometimes things get trumped up and they go crazy and everyone gets hyped and like animosity comes out, and sometimes it's because it's just being promoted by retweets and goonery that's happening from other people, and these other people don't even go to these tournaments. They're
Hmm.
not even there that much. They're watching a
Mm.
Genesis. They're tuning into a Evo, a Smash Con, and then they call it a day, right? But their voices are out there, and there are many, and I think it's important for us to kind of recognize that, because sometimes I feel like people have gotten caught up into all this social media hype and all this stuff as well, where it's like that's where we
Yeah.
get this like disparity between our people in terms of having a true communication, like true discussion, and being able to try to figure things out. Like we need to understand like who are these people who are really about the competitive community and we want to see it grow, and what can we do to support that. And at the end of the
Right.
day, it's going to come back to also connecting with the casual audience, because that's the sheer numbers, right? They're
Yeah.
the ones who are
Mhm.
going to allow us to do this all successfully. But we all need to make sure to take care of ourselves first so we can build that in that capacity. And besides, Nintendo's always going to be caring for the casual audience anyway, so they got that, right?
Mhm.
Like they're the ones
Yeah.
who Daddy's going to take care of in that way, right? So we need to figure out where we're trying to go and what we're trying to be, and then we can come back and step into family in a different capacity and in the right capacity.
Right. And then, ultimately, if things go according to the master plan that we have, we end up empowering a lot of those casual players to become that meaningful member of the community that's full participation and is able to, become part of the broader grassroots community that's going to events and being a productive member of the team. For every, I'm gonna consider it successful for every Twitter goon that we are able to convert into a productive Smash community member. That's a win in my book, and it'll have made this whole entire project worth it. So, you guys have any closing thoughts before we wrap it up? Or if you at home that's watching this on Twitch or YouTube, go ahead and leave some comments. Let us know what you think.
Yeah, I think we can. We've got what we pretty much need to say, and we could kind of
Yeah.
fill in the other things with more specific discussions. But we're here to try
Yeah.
and discuss ways that we can make our community a better community, and in one way or another, I think that's what we all want, right?
Yep.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I mean, again, like we're here to discuss this, but also we talk like we're going to be looking to people throughout the community as well, and I think that's very important, so we can get a proper picture, a collective picture of what we're looking at, what are the inconsistencies here, what are the opportunities for growth, and what we can again do all together, because we need to have that
Right.
discussion. We've had some forums and stuff that have operated in the past. Some I've been a part of. I'm sure some of you guys have been a part of as well. Of people who want to make stuff happen, who want to get this this community in a good place, right? It happens all across Smash, traditional FGC, esports, whatever, right? Um, and the key is to have, when you have these core individuals, to coming together, make sure that everything is represented that needs to be represented, and like then we all work together and make it happen, man, and build together. And I think that starts first with talking. You can't
Mhm.
work together unless you talk. Communication has to be key
Right.
for anything, relationships in any kind, in any sort. To be
Yeah.
successful, got to start the conversation. And that's what we're here to do.
Well, I've been breathing fire